Get your black ass out of my station. A cop in full uniform said it to a woman standing alone in the lobby on her first day. She stayed calm. I have a meeting here. A meeting? The stray dog says it owns the house. That killed the laugh in the room. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. Take your hands off me. Slap. The sound cut through the lobby like a whip crack. He leaned down, looked at her holding her burning face, and said, You're nothing but a cockroach trying to crawl into my station. 4 people were right there. Not one moved. He thought that was the end of it. Just another nobody he'd put in her place. But that woman was hiding a secret, one that was about to destroy everything he'd built. To understand what really happened that day, you need to know who was standing in that lobby. Her name was Olivia Foster, 42 years old, 18 years in law enforcement across 2 states, a master's degree in criminal justice from Howard University. She'd worked narcotics, internal affairs, and built community policing programs from the ground up. This was not a woman who wandered into a police station by accident. This was a woman who had spent her entire career inside them. But the precinct she just walked into was a different story. Ridgemont County Sheriff's Department, a mid-sized department in the South, was rotting from the inside. Over the past 3 years, civilian complaints had spiked, excessive force incidents were up 40%, and a state audit had flagged a pattern of racial profiling so obvious it made the evening news. The previous captain, Raymond Ellis, saw the writing on the wall and retired early. That left a hole at the top, and the pressure to fill it was enormous. Mayor Patricia Coleman was up for re-election, the community was furious, and the department's reputation was in free fall. She needed someone from outside with an internal affairs background who knew how to clean house. She found Olivia Foster, but Coleman didn't just hire her. She made a decision that would change everything. I don't want you walking in there with a title on your first day. I want you to walk in like a civilian, see how they treat people when they don't know who's watching. That's why Olivia showed up in plain clothes, no badge, no uniform, parked in the public lot, and walked through the front entrance. Every detail was deliberate. She wasn't visiting the precinct. She was testing it. Nobody knew. The only person inside the department told was outgoing Captain Raymond Ellis, who was supposed to meet her in the lobby that morning. He never showed up, came in late. At the time, it seemed like bad luck. Later, it would look like something much worse. The cop who slapped her was Derek Sullivan, 12 years on the force, 4 excessive force complaints filed against him, 0 sustained. Everyone closed as unfounded. Sullivan was protected, and the man protecting him was Sergeant Nathan Moore, 20 years on the job, who had supervised Sullivan for most of his career. Every complaint that came in went through Moore's desk and disappeared. Sullivan had a partner, too. Officer Craig Benson, younger and less experienced, who followed Sullivan's lead on everything. Sullivan acted. Benson backed him up. Moore made it go away. It had worked for years. No one had ever challenged it, until now. The night before her first day, Olivia sat in her hotel room and video called her teenage daughter, who could tell something was off. You nervous, Mom? Olivia paused. Not nervous, just tired of proving I belong in rooms I built. After hanging up, she opened her leather portfolio, read the appointment letter signed by Mayor Coleman, and set it on the nightstand. She had no idea what was coming, but in a way she'd been preparing for it her whole life. When Olivia walked through that front door, she wasn't just showing up for work. She was walking into a test she'd designed herself. She got her answer in under 60 seconds. Olivia arrived at 7:43 a.m., early on purpose, wanting to see how the building operated before it filled up. The lobby was exactly what she expected. Scuffed linoleum, buzzing fluorescent lights, a bulletproof reception window with a clerk barely looking up, cracked plastic chairs. One civilian, Denise Harper, sat waiting to file a noise complaint. Olivia walked toward the reception window. Before she got there, the staff door swung open and 2 officers walked through, Derek Sullivan, in full uniform with coffee in hand, and behind him, Craig Benson. They were cutting through the lobby to reach the bullpen. Sullivan noticed Olivia immediately, a black woman in plain clothes, no badge, standing in the middle of his lobby like she belonged there. In his mind, this building was his. He decided who was welcome. "Get your black ass out of my station," he said, casual and automatic, like he'd said it 100 times before. Olivia turned to face him, calm. "I have a meeting here." Sullivan glanced at Benson, who smirked. "A meeting? The stray dog says it owns the house." Behind the reception window, Clerk Carol, 9 years at that desk, watched the whole thing and said nothing. She'd seen Sullivan do this before, just not this bad, and knew speaking up would only make it worse for her. Denise Harper, on the bench, quietly pulled out her phone, set it on her lap with the screen facing outward, and pressed record. "I have every right to be here," Olivia said. That was the moment everything shifted. Not the words, but the refusal. Sullivan was used to people backing down. Olivia didn't move. His face hardened. He stepped in close, grabbed her arm, not gently, and pulled her toward the door. She yanked back. "Take your hands off me." Slap. His open palm hit her face full force. He leaned down and said, "You're nothing but a cockroach trying to crawl into my station." Denise's phone caught it all, including a racial slur Sullivan muttered under his breath, too quiet for the lobby security camera, but not for her phone. Olivia staggered one step, straightened up, pressed her hand to her cheek, and held Sullivan's gaze for 3 full seconds without a word. Then she turned and walked out. Sullivan sipped his coffee and told Benson, "Let's go." He didn't file a report. He didn't mention it to his sergeant. In the bullpen, he told the story loudly to other officers. "Some woman wandered in this morning, probably looking for the welfare office, had to show her the door." Benson added, "She had attitude too, like she owned the place." Easy laughter filled the room, except from Officer Tanya Williams, a black officer with 6 years on the force, who sat with her eyes down and jaw tight. She'd seen this before and always done nothing because speaking up got you targeted. But this time felt different. Meanwhile, in her car, Olivia photographed her swelling face, then opened her portfolio and wrote down everything. The time, the badge number, his exact words, every detail, clinical and precise, like she'd done it 100 times before, because she had. This was internal affairs work, and Olivia Foster had just become her own first case. She called Mayor Coleman. "Patricia, I've seen enough." 6 words. The mayor had told her to observe for 24 hours. Olivia didn't need it. Back at the hotel, Olivia documented her face from 3 angles, then wrote a formal incident report. Badge number, name, exact sequence, every word. She called Coleman back, who was already furious. "Tell me everything." Olivia laid out the facts with no emotion. When she got to the slap, Coleman went quiet. "I'll have him removed by the end of the day." "No," Olivia said firmly. "Patricia, don't react yet. This is exactly what you hired me to find, and I found it in 60 seconds. If you pull him now, it looks political. We do this the right way." She asked Coleman to move up the announcement. Full department assembly, 8 a.m. the next morning. Every officer in one room. Coleman agreed. Back at the precinct, nothing happened. No incident report was filed by Sullivan, Benson, or Carroll. Officially, the morning never occurred, and it would have stayed that way since the lobby security camera ran on a 48-hour auto-overwrite loop. Sergeant Moore knew this well. It wasn't a flaw. It was a feature he'd used before. That evening, Tanya Williams searched the incident database for any report from that day involving the lobby. Nothing. She screenshotted the empty log and called a friend in a neighboring department. "It happened again today, right in front of everybody, and I just sat there." She didn't know what she'd do yet, but she knew she couldn't keep watching. Sullivan, meanwhile, sat at his kitchen table with a beer, telling his wife, "Had to deal with some woman causing problems in the lobby." He slept fine. Olivia didn't sleep. She ironed her dress uniform, captain's bars, polished badge, nameplate reading Foster, and packed her portfolio with the appointment letter, her notes, and the photographs. At 6 a.m., an email hit every inbox. Mandatory all-hands assembly, 8 a.m., no exceptions. Sullivan shrugged it off as another diversity seminar. Moore read it in his office and felt something was wrong. At 8 a.m., 60 officers packed the briefing room, bored and chatting about budget cuts. Sullivan sat relaxed in the 3rd row with Benson. Moore stood at the back, arms folded, watching the door. Tanya sat alone, the screenshot still on her phone. Mayor Coleman walked in, no smile, straight to the podium. The room went silent. Captain Raymond Ellis has retired. This department has been without permanent leadership for 3 months. That ends today. She described the new captain. 18 years of experience, internal affairs, narcotics, community policing, someone with the independence and the backbone to lead this department through what comes next. Please welcome your new captain, Olivia Foster. The door opened, and Olivia walked in, but not the woman from the lobby. Full dress uniform, captain's bars, polished badge, nameplate reading Foster. She walked down the center aisle in total silence, carrying the same leather portfolio from the night before. Sullivan's brain took a second to place her face. Then it hit him like a freight train. The color drained from his face all at once. He looked at Benson, already pale, and in that single look they both understood. This was the woman from the lobby, the one he'd called a stray dog and a cockroach, the one he'd slapped. She was now 10 feet away, about to be introduced as his new commanding officer. Olivia reached the podium, thanked the mayor with a nod, and faced the room. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here because this department has lost the trust of the people it's supposed to protect. My job is to rebuild that trust from the inside out. She paused. I've already seen how some of you operate when you think nobody important is watching. She didn't look at Sullivan. She didn't have to. Starting today, every complaint will be reviewed. Every use of force incident will be documented and investigated. Every interaction in this building will reflect the standards of this badge. I expect professionalism. I expect accountability. And I expect it starting now. No one clapped. But across the room, Tanya Williams sat up a little straighter, and for the first time in 6 years, something like hope crossed her face. After the assembly, Olivia closed her office door, laid out the appointment letter, her notes and the photographs side by side, and called an investigator. James, it's Olivia. I need you to open a formal investigation. I'm sending you everything now. In the hallway, Sullivan grabbed Benson's arm, his voice cracking. That was her. That was the woman from the lobby. I know. Does she know? She knows, Derek. She was right there. Sullivan's face cycled through panic, denial, then survival. We need to talk to Moore. Now. Within an hour of the assembly, Olivia signed a department-wide hold on all security footage from the previous 72 hours. No overwrites, no exceptions. She knew about the 48-hour auto-delete policy. The lobby footage had less than 20 hours left. Moore came to her office to object, citing storage costs. Is there a reason you'd prefer I didn't preserve it? She asked. He had no answer and walked out, feeling for the first time in 20 years, the ground shift under him. The next morning, James Caldwell arrived, a state internal affairs investigator with 22 years of experience and no ties to Ridgemont County. Olivia had worked with him before on a corruption case. She handed him everything and stepped back completely. I'm the complainant and a witness. This is your case. Caldwell promised preliminary findings within a week. He reviewed the lobby camera footage repeatedly, time-stamping and exporting clips. It showed the approach, the exchange, the grab, the slap, and Sullivan walking back inside like nothing happened, but no audio. For that, he tracked down Denise Harper through the lobby sign-in sheet. Nervous but willing, she handed over her phone video, which captured everything the camera missed. Sullivan's words, the slur, the slap. Someone needs to see this, she said. Tanya Williams came forward next, describing a pattern, Sullivan's treatment of black residents, his pattern of intimidation, and Moore's role in burying complaints. She showed Caldwell her screenshot of the empty database. I took this because I knew it would disappear. It always disappears. Asked why she was speaking up now, she said, because someone finally walked into this building who might actually do something about it. Sullivan's formal interview, with Union Rep Glenn Dawson present, started with denials, minimum necessary force, incidental contact. Caldwell played the lobby footage, then the phone video with audio. Sullivan's own voice played back the slurs and the slap. He said nothing for the rest of the interview. Benson's interview, without Sullivan present, started the same way but cracked when Caldwell explained that failure to intervene carried the same disciplinary weight as the act itself. Benson admitted the slur was real, the slap deliberate, and said, "I didn't stop him. I should have stopped him." Caldwell then reviewed Moore's supervisory records. 5 years of complaints against Sullivan, all routed through Moore's desk, all closed as unfounded within days, with minimal documentation. Clerk Carroll confirmed the pattern and mentioned that Deputy Chief Ellis, normally in by 7 a.m., hadn't shown up until almost 9 the day of the incident. Caldwell pulled phone records and found a text from Moore to Ellis the night before. "Don't rush in tomorrow. Take your time. I'll handle the morning." Ellis was the only person who knew Olivia was coming, and Moore had made sure he wasn't there. Caldwell's final report: Sullivan, sustained findings of excessive force, racial discrimination, conduct unworthy of an officer, and failure to report. Benson, sustained finding of failure to intervene, with cooperation noted as mitigating. Moore, sustained findings of supervisory misconduct, pattern of complaint suppression, and deliberate interference with department operations. 9 days after the slap, a closed disciplinary hearing was held. Olivia sat as captain, not victim, with Mayor Coleman and Caldwell beside her. Sullivan arrived first, wearing his uniform for the last time. Caldwell played the footage one final time. Both angles, audio and all. Sullivan's attorney argued for suspension and counseling, calling it an isolated incident. Olivia didn't slow down for effect. Officer Sullivan, based on the sustained findings of this investigation, including the use of excessive force against a civilian, a documented racial slur, deliberate failure to report the incident, and conduct unworthy of a sworn officer, you are terminated from the Ridgemont County Sheriff's Department, effective immediately. His file would go to the state licensing board and the district attorney for review. Sullivan unclipped his badge, set it on the table, and walked out without a word. Moore came next. Caldwell laid out 5 years of pattern evidence and the text message to Ellis. Moore offered no defense. Olivia stripped him of his rank, suspended him without pay, and ordered every complaint he'd supervised in 5 years reopened by an independent panel. He walked out in silence. Benson was last, exhausted and visibly remorseful. Caldwell noted his cooperation as a mitigating factor. Olivia suspended him 60 days without pay, with mandatory retraining and 2 years of supervised probation, any further violation meaning immediate termination. "You had a choice in that lobby," she told him. "You saw what was happening. You could have stopped it. You didn't. That failure doesn't disappear because you cooperated after the fact. But I'm giving you something Sullivan didn't earn, a second chance. Don't waste it." Benson nodded, then turned at the door. "I'm sorry, Captain." Olivia nodded once. The hearing took less than 2 hours. 3 careers, one destroyed, one dismantled, one hanging by a thread, all decided by the woman who had been slapped in that same lobby 9 days earlier. Within 2 weeks, Olivia rolled out a full reform package. Mandatory body cameras in all public areas, an independent civilian complaint review board, revised use of force protocols requiring documentation within 1 hour, external bias training, and a mentorship program pairing veteran officers with community liaisons. The State Oversight Board's next quarterly report, for the first time in 3 years, dropped the word deficient. Complaints didn't stop, but their nature shifted from force to process. Real, if unglamorous, progress. Denise Harper received a formal apology letter from the department and pinned it to her fridge, telling a neighbor, "I almost didn't say anything. I'm glad I did." 6 months later, the building looked the same. Same scuffed floors, same fluorescent lights. But it didn't feel the same. A civilian liaison desk and feedback box now sat near the entrance. Officers greeted visitors because it felt wrong not to. Some officers resented Olivia and transferred out. Those who stayed were learning to trust her. A junior officer who once would have asked Sullivan for advice now knocked on Olivia's door instead. Tanya Williams was promoted to sergeant, and Olivia pinned the insignia on her collar herself. "I spent 6 years being afraid to speak," Tanya said quietly. "I don't want anyone else in this department to feel that way." Olivia replied, then make sure they don't. At the end of a long day, Olivia opened her portfolio one last time. Beside the appointment letter sat a new photo. Her and her daughter at a community barbecue the department had hosted, officers and civilians together, simply existing without fear. She closed the portfolio, walked out through the same front entrance she'd once been shoved through, and paused at the spot where it had all happened. She didn't feel anger or triumph, just something quieter. Proof that the worst day of her career had become the first day of something better. 60 seconds. That's all Olivia needed to see the truth. She got slapped and didn't flinch. She turned a bruise into a case file, pain into power. But what really changed that department wasn't Olivia's badge or her title. It was Tanya Williams, 6 years of silence finally walking into a room and saying enough. It was Denise Harper, a stranger on a bench, quietly pressing record because she believed someone should be watching. One person at the top opened the door, but it was the people who walked through it who burned the old system down. Justice doesn't come from one hero. It comes from ordinary people choosing courage over comfort. So ask yourself, when you stay silent, who are you really protecting? The person being hurt or the person doing the hurting? And if the door opens tomorrow, would you walk through it?